In this video, I'm going to talk to you about the Trump Derangement Syndrome. And I'm going to give you an excellent example of something that just happened last night when people went to show up to work at USAID. 600 employees were locked out of their offices. Why? Because Donald Trump's administration decided they want to audit where the money goes for USAID. These Democrats coming in from Minnesota, some guy by the name of Jaime Raskin, complaining that Donald Trump has no right to close down USAID because it was created by Congress and we will reopen it. Now, what's the deal about USAID? USAID isn't USAID as you would think. It's used to manipulate foreign powers, foreign governments, overturn governments. Sometimes they do give aid, but it's propaganda, basically, and they have a larger budget, it turns out, than the CIA. The problem is they're less than transparent. Here, this is what they had to say. They called in the Democratic, I believe, representative from Maryland to come in to say that Donald Trump does not have the right to close down USAID because it was created by the U.S. Congress. Here's a fact check. It was created by JFK, who was president of the United States. So one president created it. Another president can at least suspend its services until a further audit's done. After all, he represents the U.S. people, and he has a right to know where the money's being spent. We'll take it one step further. Then we have a lady by the name of Ilhan Omar, who's a Democrat from Minnesota, who is just completely doesn't make any sense. She's saying he's a tyrant, he's a dictator. I told you from day one he would do whatever he wants to do.
We talked about Trump wanting to be a dictator on day one, and here we are. This is what the beginning of dictatorship looks like.
No, he's trying to bring the country back to common sense. He also wants to audit and see what they're spending the money on. Allegedly, a lot of money from USAID was being funneled into the Clinton Foundation. And when this Ilhan Omar talks about dictators and talks about oligarchs, she should have a look at one of her kind of people, the socialist kind of people in Nicaragua, Daniel Ortega, who just declared that him and his wife have absolute power in Nicaragua. Now that's a dictator for you. Or Maduro, who just ignores the election results and just installs himself as president. Those are dictators. What I suggest to Ilhan Omar is, why don't you go live in Nicaragua? Or why don't you go to Venezuela to live and get the hell out of the United States? Because we don't want to live in a dictatorship. And lastly, I forgot to mention, a senior member of the Treasury Department refused to provide Donald Trump with an audit of what they spent $1 trillion. That's right, $1 trillion. And who is a public servant to tell the President of the United States, who represents the U.S. people, that he doesn't want Donald Trump to audit what they're spending the money on? That stinks. Obviously, he resigned or was fired just, I think, yesterday. But what kind of people are these? So we just do what we want with your money and you have no right to look at it? There's a lack of logic here, a lack of sense. Donald Trump represents the United States. He represents the U.S. people, and we're behind him. He needs to audit, needs to see where the money is going. It's common sense. Any company, any system, any organization that's broken, in order to fix it, you have to find out where the problems are. Common sense. So Ilhan Omar, why don't you resign and go live in Nicaragua and enjoy a real dictatorship? Or go to Venezuela and you'll be so happy with Maduro, because I'm sure you can sit around and have chit-chats about the same ideologies and how wonderful it is to live in a dictatorship in Venezuela. Don't be calling Donald Trump a dictator. He won by much, much more than Kamala Harris or Biden by far. And we don't know what happened in 2020, but we assume that something strange happened there. The only difference is the numbers were much closer. See, when the numbers are close in the election results, it's easy to fudge by a few percentage points. But if there's a huge spread, you can still fudge. But if you do it too much, it's going to become too obvious that something's up. And that would create basically a revolt or revolution, and that would be counterproductive to what the globalist agenda hopes to accomplish. Of course, they want to bring down the nation states, because this is what actually we're seeing them do in Europe, with Keir Starmer in the UK, with Pedro Sánchez in Spain. These people don't have the support of their citizens. In fact, most of their citizens hate them. Keir Starmer has a 66% disapproval rate. And Pedro Sánchez in Spain also has a 67% disapproval rate. Keir Starmer this year has created a deficit of 121 billion pounds. Pedro Sánchez this year has created a deficit in Spain of about 90 billion euro. So, you can see they overspend, they can't manage, they don't do what the public wants. They're out there just to look at themselves and keep themselves, strong and good and in power. That's what these people are about. It's about extreme narcissism when they become overly egotistical. And it's a shame. And we're seeing issues as well in France. We're seeing issues even in Germany. We're seeing issues like this. Some strange things happen in Holland where one political party won, but they installed a member of parliament from another party. A little weird. I'm not sure how that all worked out, but a lot of strange things are happening these days. So it's important to keep in mind that most, maybe not most, but many of the people that are representing you as supposedly democratic leaders are actually not democratic. It's unfortunate, but what it is, it's a pseudo-democracy. It's okay if you vote in our ideology, then everything's going to be fine. But if you try to change something, which democracy allows for, forget it. We're going to cheat. We're going to censor you. We're going to maybe put you in prison. We're going to do all kinds of nasty things to you. So you toe the line. To me, that sounds a lot like a China or a dictatorship. What does it sound like to you? Put your comments in the box below. I'd love to hear your thoughts.